because I had a recruiting background, I knew that I could really help people with career coaching, pivot, help them pivot into new jobs. And so I created a 10-step methodology to help these people pivot, get promoted, or anything like that. And so then that blossomed into its own whole vertical in our organization that is the one-on-one career coaching, pivot coaching. And it became so popular that we had a waiting list so long that I thought, oh my gosh, if you're looking for a new job, you can't wait 6 months to do that. You want to do it now.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues, the podcast where we interview business owners on how they built their businesses and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is David Wynn, and I'm a business coach and the founder of Purple Circle, where we help business owners achieve their first 6-figure, 7-figure, and 8-figure year, all without sacrificing their quality of life. Before becoming a business coach and before founding Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7- and 8-figure coaching businesses, and have been a consultant at several businesses doing over $100 million each, including some that are publicly listed and doing over $1 billion each. In every episode of the podcast, you're going to learn lessons that took our guests years to learn, and you'll be able to learn that in minutes. No matter if you're a new business owner or an established business owner, every episode is going to give you the clues in order to elevate your business.
Welcome to Success Leads Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Mary Olson-Menzel, a strategic HR leader and executive coach who's 20 plus years partnering with CEOs, boards, and senior leadership teams has made her a trusted advisor at the highest levels of organizational decision-making. Mary founded her boutique HR consulting and executive coaching firm to serve growth stage companies, private equity-backed businesses, and mission-driven organizations navigating the people challenges that come with rapid scale and transformation. Her expertise spans talent strategy, organizational design, culture transformation, and HR due diligence for M&A transactions, giving her a uniquely comprehensive view of how people's strategy directly impacts business valuation and long-term resilience. As an MBA, ASPE-HR, and ICF certified coach, Mary translates complex organizational challenges into practical, actionable solutions that drive real business results rather than just HR compliance. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you, Pedro. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. Okay. And I'm kind of a comic book nerd myself, Mary. I'd love for us to rewind a bit, back to the origin story. We're talking about 20 years in the game, because every coach has that moment when they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you, Mary?
Oh gosh, well, Pedro, I've had so many pivot moments in my life. I mean, from television reporter to recruiter, from recruiter to coach. But I think that my biggest aha moment was when I started MVP 14 years ago. It was executive search and executive coaching. We were doing both. And then COVID happened, and the executive search kind of came to a screeching halt. The coaching side of the business quadrupled in need and revenue. And I was trying to do it all. And at the time, I'm sitting there, and my youngest son says, Mom, come play basketball with me. Now, this is COVID, right? So I was playing a lot of basketball with him in our driveway. And I said, honey, no, I've got all these emails to catch up on. And he said, Mom, you wrote a book called What Lights You Up. You talk to people about doing what lights them up all day. He goes, you don't look very lit right now, Mom. That was that aha moment, Pedro, where I was like, oh my God, my 10-year-old is reflecting my exhaustion back to me. And so that was that pivotal moment where I thought, oh my gosh, I have to stand in my own truth and do what lights me up. And what lights me up is the executive coaching, the leadership, the speaking, and the writing.
Okay. Now, let's backtrack a little. We're talking about 20 years in the game as a coach, but 14 as a business owner in the coaching practice. Okay. Let's talk about that shift from, I'm doing this in the corporate world. I'm coaching here, but right now I'm going to do a leap of faith. I'm going to launch my own business, right? So,
Yeah.
can you walk us through how that felt like? Was it scary? That's one
Yeah.
thing. Did you had like an identity shift? And in the identity shift, I like to talk about is like I worked at corporate, right? I worked at banking. I worked at a consulting firm here in Brazil, Ernest and Young. And whenever I clocked out, Mary, I clocked out, right? It's like sayonara to everyone. And then I started my own business, and it's like, it's a nonstop thing. I need to create my own boundaries. So
Yes.
please
Yeah.
enlighten us on that path, please.
Oh gosh, Pedro. I mean, it's always, I think that, somebody should write a book. They probably already have about the entrepreneur's journey, right? Because yes, I was in big corporate. I loved my jobs, but then we moved from Chicago to New York. And when we moved to New York, I worked for a couple different firms, and it happened, this aha moment, another aha moment happened on a beach. We're down in Florida with our kids, and our kids are swimming in the water. My husband and I are having a margarita, and he's like, "Why are you making money for other people? Why don't you start your own business?" And I thought, "Oh no, I don't want to do that." But the more, margaritas that we had, no, I'm just kidding. No, but the more, the more we talked about it, the more I thought about it. I thought, wow, you know what? My kids are young enough that if I do start my own business, I'm not going to be tied to that, 8 to 6 day and travel and all of those things. So, what starting MVP 14 years ago did for me was give me the flexibility to work very hard, but also to be present for my kids when they needed me for like school drop offs and the sports and the plays and everything else.
Oh my God, I'm noticing a pattern of family members calling you out. Sorry. I'm like, what's happening right now, right? I mean, who's next, right? I wonder now.
Yeah, yeah,
When you launch your business, and I really like the early days talk, right? In the coaching space, it's like I'm a coach myself, so we try to help everyone, right? We're just trying to
right.
pay the bills, we're trying to make it, but eventually we attract a certain type of people. We sharpen the blade, and we're like, okay, this is the one I can actually serve. So I have a two-folded question for you. Walk us through the evolution of it, right? Like the first people you were talking to, how did that look like? And then you realize, okay, now I serve this people. This is my tribe, you know?
Mhm. Yes, and what an evolution it's been, because what we did in the very beginning stages of MVP Exec was we had the executive search side, so that was retained executive search, and then we had the coaching. And what we would do with the coaching is we would coach our people that we placed through the first 30, 60, 90 days to ensure success for our clients. When we were successful doing that, more and more people started coming and saying, "Wait, can you help me get promoted? Can you help me do this? Can you help me do that?" And so our corporate coaching practice really started to unfold beautifully. But then at the same time, to your point, Pedro, you want to help everybody. I mean, that's part of why you go into coaching. And because I had a recruiting background, I knew that I could really help people with career coaching, pivot, help them pivot into new jobs. And so I created a 10-step methodology to help these people pivot, get promoted, or anything like that. And so then that blossomed into its own whole vertical in our organization that is the one-on-one career coaching, pivot coaching. And it became so popular that we had a waiting list so long that I thought, oh my gosh, if you're looking for a new job, you can't wait 6 months to do that. You want to do it now. That's why I wrote What Lights You Up.
Okay. Now, a little game of pretend here, Mary. Let's pretend I'm your ideal client profile. I'm your avatar. Okay. I
Mhm.
can see there are two arms here, right? We're looking about career coaching to an extent, and there is
Yeah.
the leadership and the corporate, the executive coaching.
Yes.
Um, I'll let you pick. What do you want me to be right now? Pick one.
You can be my corporate client because I think
Corporate
that
client.
we haven't talked about that yet.
Okay, so let me adjust here my hoodie, corporate client hoodie. Okay. I'm that guy. Okay. I'm
Uh-huh.
your corporate client right now. First of all, how would I be able to, find you marketing wise?
The best way to find us is really referrals. And I think that that is where we get so much of our business because we do great business or we do great work. And then somebody says, oh, you need to talk to Mary. Or you need to talk to Mary and her team. And so that's that one referrals, word of mouth, all of that. But LinkedIn is a big one for us. Got just about 10,000 followers on LinkedIn that, I'm very active with. You can also find us on our websites. We have two websites, one for my speaking and my writing and the What Lights You Up stuff, but we also have the MVP exec website. And so, we've got all kinds of different ways. Instagram, you name it. We're on it and we're present.
Okay. So here's the kicker, right? Pedro, the corporate avatar, your ICP, is still in the same scenario. I'm like, okay, looking at your LinkedIn, website, Instagram, even I could be potentially referred to you. Okay.
Mhm.
And now you have 10,001 follower. I'm the one, I'm that guy. Okay. I'm
Thanks,
like,
Pedro.
thanks, Pedro. And I'm loving what I see, right? I'm resonating with that stuff. So I reach out. Okay. I'm like, hey, how does it look like to work with you guys? We can speed up the sales process if you want. We could just say there is alignment of sorts. You guys can
Hmm.
help me. I know you guys can help. There is alignment, right? But what do I really want to know is like if you could provide me a certain peek behind the curtain, right? Of how does it look like to work with you, and the potential outcomes I can expect.
Yes. So a lot of times these corporate clients reach out to us when they're at a inflection point in their careers, right? So say you're Mr. Corporate, as we call you, and you are a chief marketing officer who wants to get promoted to CEO. So you call us and you say, I really want to help. I need help getting promoted. I need help with my leadership. I need help getting prepared. And so what we tend to do is we start with a very deep dive, five two on one sometimes, one on one sessions, because I do a lot of work with my colleague Mel Shabazian, and we will dive deep into a psychometric assessment called Insights Discovery. But we do it in 5 sessions where we really help leaders see not only their natural gifts and all the strengths that they're bringing to the table, but also where are their blind spots? Who do they need to surround themselves with for success? And how do they influence the organization? So it's all around being a good leader and helping them identify their own leadership signature and not someone else's.
Mm. Okay. Now I wanna. I'm thinking right because I'm also a career coach, so there's that. And sometimes I'm talking with my ICP, and I see career coaches talking with their ICPs, and sometimes people have I'll put it simply like this: a hard understanding of what exactly are we going to do for them, right? Are you going to get me a job? Are you going to talk with my boss, right? How does that look like? What exactly are you helping me with? So, if you had to, it's not really an objection, but if you had to come up with an answer for people that are not really understanding what's about, what would
Yeah.
that be?
Yes. Well, there's two answers to this, Pedro, because if this person is paying us out of their own pocket for the pivot or the career coaching, that's one thing, right? Then we would probably not be talking to their boss. But if it's somebody who their organization is paying for them to be coached in order to get this promotion or in order to become a better leader or a better leader of people, then we try to do a 360-degree viewpoint and we do have a conversation with their boss. Where are Pedro's gaps? What does he need to create even more success within this organization? But we don't divulge confidential information to the boss. We give, if we're talking with the client, we say, all right, this sounds like something we want to share with your boss. You good with that? And then we make it a really nice, organic, immersive conversation.
Okay, so you told me it could be B2C or B2B in a way, right? It could be
Correct.
the Pedro, Mr. Corporate, it reached out. Let me understand the B2B side. How does that look like? What's the perspective? Is it like they're hiring, the company hires you so you can make them a better leader? Or how does that look like?
Yes, that's a lot of it, Pedro, is that a company will come to us and say, we've got this new global team. They need to be working in sync despite the geographical differences. Can you create a curriculum for this new team to help them work better together and be better leaders? Or, the other scenario that we talked about, we've got Pedro. He wants to get promoted to the CEO of the company. How can we help him, and how can we create also a succession plan so that when Pedro gets promoted to CEO, he's got great people right behind him to fill those gaps.
Mm, okay. Give me a second. Bad Pedro, Mr. Corporate is stepping in. Okay. His my evil twin. Okay. He shows up. Okay. And then into the corporate section. And the reason I want to ask this, because I feel it's so interesting, is like, let's say, because Bad Pedro is not the paying customer. He was set up for success to be in touch with you, right? Because his boss or whoever that person is hired you to help Bad Pedro. Okay. But Bad Pedro is giving kind of a hard time. He's like, I have to go to this. I mean, I have so much things to do. I don't really need this. That type of mentality, that type of it. How do you navigate Bad Pedro? Because it's almost like, okay, mom, like it doesn't have it doesn't show like this, obviously, but you're feeling he's really not into it. How to navigate that? Because at
Yes,
the end of the day, he's been told to do that, right?
that is tough because I think that you really, if you have somebody who's not coachable, that's a problem, right? And so we have to do an assessment. We actually have an assessment that we give to our clients if they have any doubt. A lot of people these days love having a coach, right? They're like, oh my God, I get to learn. I have somebody who's going to listen to me and guide me. That's not my boss and not my mentor, right? But there are the bad Pedros out there. And we make sure that Pedro takes an assessment beforehand so that we know the pitfalls of what Pedro's expectations are before we go into the conversation. And from there, we give them about 3 sessions of this deep dive together. And if bad Pedro doesn't turn it around and turn his attitude around, then we have another conversation with, his boss, because some people, they don't want to be coached, right? And
Right.
at that point, you want somebody who's excited, who's going to embrace the process. And if you haven't been able to kind of turn them around in a couple sessions, then it's a whole different conversation.
Oh yeah, that bad. He's a terrible guy, terrible person. He didn't even took the assessment. Okay, he was like, just skip the email. He was like, that is terrible. Now I have another one, which is not bad Pedro. This is more of sad Pedro. Okay, sad
Oh.
Pedro is B2C. So he's into career. He got laid off. He
Mhm.
started working with you guys, and I understand it's not gonna like I understand you might deliver great results, but there is a time frame to it, right? It's not like I sign up today, I'm going to get the job tomorrow. There's
Right.
that, I imagine,
Right.
right? So
Right.
there is a time frame that needs to be respected, some steps. But let's say sad Pedro is really, bummed out. He's like he starts no showing, he's losing confidence, he's not getting the job in the first 2 interviews. He's like, what's the point? Right? Uh
Yeah.
can you navigate sad Pedro? I want to hear from you. This is very interesting. How do you first of all, you check on him, his no showing. Second, you get back to that confidence levels up, you know?
Yes. And the crazy, crazy thing too is, and you know this, right? The world that we're living in right now, everything's taking longer. Even though technology is speeding us up at the, speed of AI, right? there's still things that are taking longer, like finding a job. The average executive who's looking for a job now, it takes almost 9 months. So there's a lot of sad Pedros out there because it's daunting and it's frustrating. And so it's up to us to keep them inspired and motivated throughout this whole process. And, there was one guy who I just loved and adored, who we worked with, who had a moment where he just lost that energy, right? And he in the exact kind of way that you are talking about. And so I said to him, he was in tears in my office. And I said to him, listen, you need to take a break. You need to actually go out, put your feet in the grass, look out at the water, wherever I happen to know he lives by the water. But take a break, clear your mind, go spend time with your family, go do something else that is not focused on looking for this job this week. Take that break, take that mental health break, and then come back ready to dive back in. And most of the time, when these sad Pedros have, really had that moment to think and give their mind a rest, then they can come back re-energized, and then it's for us to help them continue to build that momentum.
Okay, love that. Yeah, we sometimes got to distance ourselves from the outcome, right? I always think about this. I was a high ticket sales closer, and the reason I think about this is like the more I distance myself from, I'm gonna close this deal and go whatever, the easier it gets, right? It's like a mind
Yes.
trick. It's so weird, right? And sometimes I had like these friends, they were like going out on clubs looking for a husband, or a wife or whatever. And when you get that energy, it just doesn't work out because you're not there to meet someone. You're there to, find the one person for your entire life. So it gets a kind of a neediness energy. You're nervous. Like he's showing up on interviews like super on the edge, I imagine, right?
Yes.
Which makes
Mhm.
everything harder. So great reminder. Now I want to shift gears for a second, throw you a small, very small curveball. I know you can take it. Okay,
I
Mary.
love curveballs. Do it. Do it.
I mean, I don't want to be like a family member, but I'm going to dive in a little bit on that because your work seems pretty hands-on. You had your book, you have your practice, both arms, right? Corporate and not corporate. Seems like you're very hands-on, right? So how do you think about capacity? So don't stretch yourself too thin.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Pedro, you just dialed in on the entrepreneur's dilemma, right? How do you scale? And it's really interesting that you ask me this question right now because as the expert in helping others pivot, I also know that my next pivot of how that scale looks is coming down the pipe pretty fast. Because back-to-back Zooms is exhausting. Everybody knows that, right? And I love working with clients. I love being able to help them, guide them, inspire them, motivate them to live their best lives. But I can't do that from an empty cup, right? I need to be filled and energized as well. So, the book was part of that. The speaking events and the workshops are a big part of that because then we can affect a much larger population of people. There's a second book coming out. So just a little
Ooh.
preview. You heard it here first. And also, I think there's going to be a lot more group coaching where we're taking big groups because the one-on-one it takes a lot. We'd have to clone ourselves in order to keep going at the pace that we're going at right now.
Yeah, it's almost like a founder's trap, right? And it's
Yes.
scary because here's the thing, right? Well, two things. I see it two ways. First, when I was in corporate, like I said, I clocked out, goodbye to everyone. But
Hmm.
when I'm working, sometimes I'm in my office, like, and I do the podcast, right? And I'm also a career coach. And my wife is like, why are you laughing so much? This doesn't sound like work, This sounds like fun. And I'm like, wait a minute. But the thing is, it doesn't really look like work, doesn't feel like work, but it drains you either way. right?
Yes.
You can get 10 hours in and you're like, oh my God, I just need to sit down and relax. That's one thing. It's like finding that balance because it doesn't really feel like work. As you know, you want to help people and all that. The second thing, the second point to the founder's trap is like, you hit that ceiling for a reason. You're good at what you do. And now that's the scary part where sometimes you got to let go a little bit
Yeah.
because delegating, right? And it's scary to delegate because you built what you built because of who you are, right? So you don't want to tarnish your brand. You told me yourself we have great referrals, right? But
Mhm.
whenever we talk about scaling a business, it's almost like part of it it's letting go, part of it is accepting that we want to impact more people, but there is a cost to it. And
Mhm.
to navigate the one-on-ones are not the one-to-many, they're different. Not doesn't mean they're bad
Nope.
or worse or whatever. So I'm not sure if you agree with me on those 2 points, but whenever I see a coach trying to scale their business, they're facing those two main obstacles. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it does. And we talk with entrepreneurs a lot about that too. I mean, I'm really lucky because as a, recruiter, in my previous life, I know how to hire really good people. I have the most amazing team surrounding me, Pedro. I'm so lucky. So the delegation part is not a problem, but it is the how do we clone ourselves without hiring more and more and more people? And how do we make sure that that quality of experience, to your point, continues in the same way as if they would have hired me, right? So there's that where there's a lot of investment up front of your people so that that experience of course is going to be a little bit different if they work with Mel or with Kate or with Georges or anybody else, but that they're getting that same high quality, deep caring and expertise.
Hmm. Yes. Good to know you do have a team of, qualified
Yes.
people. I love how you framed it as lucky. I love that. Now, I'm curious about where you're taking all this, right? Let's talk future for a second. Looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Since we're talking about scaling, are you thinking about even there, scaling, hiring more people? Or is there a next step you're excited about?
Yeah. I mean, the next step I think is, expanding this larger audience, of the speaking business and the next book. The next book is going to be really focused on leaders and a framework that I developed to help leaders excel in their roles. So that's kind of fun. And then I also think, I'm being very open with you talked about like having your I would say like if you're trying to force something, you've got your foot on the gas, you're trying to force it, it doesn't ever flow. You take your foot off the gas and you kind of let things unfold and you watch for the insights and the signs and things like that. It's a much easier way to live. I mean, I was just
Mm,
speaking with a very, very successful coaching and speaker friend last night. And she said the exact same thing you did. What's next for you? I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things swirling inside of my head right now that I need to almost take a little bit of this summer and step back, keep doing the great work, but let the insights unfold a little bit so
mm,
that I know what direction I want to go next. Does that make
mm.
sense? It's
It
almost like,
does.
hey, universe, show me the signs, show me the direction that I need to go because things are changing so quickly in the coaching world with AI and technology and everything else that there's the sky's the limit of what we can do, but we have to make sure that it's aligned with our values too.
Yeah, it sounds to me, it's not like a lack of ideas. There are plenty of ideas on how to scale and what to do. It's more like finding that inner peace, that peace of mind to get laser focused clarity on what's the next step. At least that's what I took from it. I might be totally off here.
No, you got it. You got it. And that's what I teach people to do is get clarity around their next step. So if I can't do that for myself, then I'm in big trouble, right? So, yeah.
Yes and no, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're human. Like, we also need to fill our cup. We also have our blind spots. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people are so harsh on like, you got to walk the talk and all that, but it's so much easier. Like when my wife, for example, is pinpointing something I'm missing just because
Yeah.
I'm 10 steps ahead because I already assumed something in an earlier step that is not really true, and she's
Mhm.
like, okay, but why are you doing X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. It's just being me, just being human, right? I don't see
Yeah.
us like that. Now, of course, whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, always something we're refining in the present, right, Mary? So what
Mhm.
are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now?
Well, I think the group coaching for sure. We're thinking about more of that. That's easy on the B2B side, right? Because the client, calls us and says, "Come lead a 2-day offsite." Easy, right? But what about the group coaching for the people who are the individuals that need the help? Who maybe don't have the deep pockets of a large corporate organization, who still need that guidance and leadership or careers or whatever it may be. So thinking about, even a larger coaching cohort of people like that, that's kind of swirling around. Refining even my keynotes, refining those more, because I think we can always get better, and I think we can always learn. And I love that your wife calls you out. I think that you're right. There's a pattern for you too, Pedro. Your wife is telling you, "Hey," but we all need that outside perspective, and I think
Mm,
that's really important too, because we can get so driven. Sounds like you and I are a lot alike like this. We could work for hours on end
mm.
until somebody stops us, right? So we have to be aware of that and put our own guardrails and boundaries around our work as well.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I have this Friday off just for X, Y, and Z, and you have a client or whatever, and like, oh, this sounds interesting. Let me book on Friday, right? It's like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing, Pedro? You're just,
Exactly. You're like, I want to help everybody. Okay.
yeah, right?
Push it to Monday, Pedro. Push it to Monday.
Okay, I'll push it to Monday. I'll add a reminder here, Pedro. Don't be bad, Pedro. Pedro. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
exactly.
let's step in into a little bit of a science fiction moment here. Let's pretend we do have a time machine in front of us. Okay, we're gonna have two stops. First stop, you can go back 14 years ago, Mary, when you opened shop, and you can give yourself one piece of business advice you wish you knew back then. Okay,
Hmm.
what would that be?
I think it revolves around the same thing that we were just talking about. Don't push so hard. I mean, when you start your business, and you said this earlier, Pedro, it's like a leap of faith. It's like jumping off a cliff, right? You're like, "Woo, here I go, let's see how this goes." And you feel like you need to get, be making tons of money and be up to speed quite quickly. And I think I think it was actually my daughter who was like, "Well, you're a Capricorn. Capricorns work really hard." And I'm like, "Yes, and we all could work smarter." Right? So I think finding the joy in the moments and not pushing so hard in the very beginning, and taking that thread all the way through, is really important for entrepreneurs to understand, because you started your own business for a reason, because you were
Mhm.
exceptionally good at something and it was lighting you up. But that doesn't mean it has to consume you. You need to take care of yourself and take care of your family and take care of your clients and all of that stuff. But that's a balance. And you do have to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Oh my god. Do you have a camera here at my home? Like it sounds like you're talking to me, literally talking to me. You gotta take care of yourself. You're pushing yourself too hard. So yeah, no, I get that. I love that reminder. Okay. Second stop. This is gonna make sense considering the first answer. Let's pretend you can go back to one point in time in those 14 years that you were like, this is why I'm doing this. That moment of realization of your cup is so filled. It's like amazing. Do you have one of those?
Yeah. The problem is I have so many of those.
You gotta pick one. Come on.
I know, I know. Okay. Well, you know what? I think that one of those moments for me was when the book came out because as we talked about, Pedro, we all want to help everybody. And what I realized, and my daughter said this again, she said, this is your love letter to the world. This is like something where you can help more people on a larger scale with the knowledge that you have. And so it felt like this beautiful culmination of years of recruiting and the 10-step methodology and the work all coming together. And when it hit the bestseller list, it was like, you know, it was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful moment where I, felt like, wow, this work really matters.
Wow. Who are you raising up there? I mean, this is your love letter to the world. I mean, your
My
kids sound
kids.
amazing.
They're good.
Jesus. I'm like, wow. They're calling you out. They're giving you like words of wisdom that I'm like, who's parenting who here? I'm like, this is
Yeah.
great. This is great. Okay. I'm thinking, I didn't launch a book. Do I have plans? Yes. But I know how this is the part we are very different. Uh, the launch would scare me. I think the testimonials about the book will fill me up. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm. But you
Well,
were excited with the launch.
I was,
Mm.
but think back, Pedro. My background, I was a television reporter. So, here we sit, on a podcast. I had no problem doing the media tours. I had no problem doing all the TV stops and, things like that. That was fun for me. The daunting part was asking people to buy books, you know, because I didn't want to have to ask anyone for anything. But, the writing of the book was very meaningful and deep. The editing of the book was kind of, that has to be done. Then the going into the launch was like a wild magic carpet ride because it was exhausting but
Mm.
exhilarating all at once.
Okay. I love that. Now, if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Mary, and we're going to have all the links in the description, right? But where can people find you best, and connect with you?
Yes. Well, best place is to reference your podcast and message me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, but also we have two websites, one for the executive coaching, one for the book related and speaking stuff. So first website is mvpexec.com, mvpexec.com. That's where all the coaching, all the B2B, B2C leadership stuff is. And then the more Mary keynote speaker book related stuff is at my name, MaryOlsonMenzel.com. So it's just find me at either place. And I'd love to connect with all of your audience.
Okay. There were a few things you shared today really stuck with me, Mary. Let's start from the beginning, right? Your younger kid calling you out. You don't look very lit right now, mom. Oh my God. And then we move to the husband. Why are you making money for other people? So you do have a team at home. Wow, that's amazing. That really stood out to me. That's really, really cool. Okay. So there's that. And not just by them calling you out, is the fact that you listened, right? It's
Yeah.
not just about because I had a part in my life that my wife called me out. I wasn't ready to listen, right? And
Mm-hmm.
now I feel like I am more ready. So being open about the struggles, your blind spots, it's like it's as much as we say this, it's not as I mean, it's pretty simple but not easy to do because you have to reflect, look back at you, and you're like, okay, I gotta get my stuff together right now. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah.
Then we moved to that client that had to take a break, right? Get the mind to rest, as you mentioned. Very
Mm-hmm.
powerful reminder to distance ourselves from the outcome, or we're gonna have a hard time of, first of all, having fun, being joyful in life, and that's a
Yes.
very interesting reminder. Also, so open about your own obstacles when we move to capacity, when we move to the fact that you're still figuring out stuff. You're still looking on how to scale. You're still, you're not like trying to show up as a perfect person. You're just Mary by Mary. I love that. Okay. Then we move to the group coaching bit, but not just that. You mentioned in how to serve people who don't have the deep pockets, right? It's like there is intention, there is purpose out there, right? It's not just about corporate. And when we're in the time machine, you're like, yeah, I gotta find joy in the moment. I think this is a very powerful one. You gotta, like, this is like mandatory for me at work. Whatever I do, I have to have fun. Like, it's
Yes.
a necessity. If it's boring, I'm leaving. Okay, that's simple as that. So this is just my long-winded way of saying, Mary, that I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. It was great having you on.
Thank you, Pedro. And I'll do one last thing. What I'm actually posting today is about the 80-20 rule. I'm posting it on Instagram. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, I would love that. It's MaryOlsonMenzel. That's it. Just my whole name. But the 80-20 rule, Pedro, is really important for people to remember. If 80% of what you're doing you love, and 20% of what you're doing is like the administrative stuff or some things that you don't love, you're still winning, right? If it becomes 50-50 and only 50% of what you love is the good stuff and the fun and the joy, then you really need to re-examine, right? But if you're 80% in on loving what you do and finding the fun and the joy, you're winning. So don't be too hard on yourself.
That's it for this episode. This episode, as well as this podcast, was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help business owners elevate their business to 6, 7, and 8-figure years, all without burning out. If you're looking to grow your business, as well as get the time freedom that you are looking for, visit us at joinpurplecircle.com and see what we can do to help you and your business.